Now we're going to talk about another scale, a scale outside of one of our natural modes or diatonic scales. This is a scale called the pentatonic scale. Let's put that on the board. Pentatonic scale. Pentatonic scale. Now when you look at that word and you divide it up, the prefix here, pent, of course stands for 5, and tonic stands for tones. So this is a 5-tone scale. The pentatonic scale then could mean any 5-tone scale. 1, 3, 4, 5, 7 of a scale, or half steps or combinations of whole steps. Any combination of pitches could be a pentatonic scale. However, when generally in Western music we talk about the pentatonic scale, we're talking about something that's also called the major pentatonic scale, and it has a particular arrangement of intervals and relationship to the major scale. So let's put our major scale on the board one more time. Here's our C major scale. So generally when we talk about the pentatonic scale or the major pentatonic scale, we're talking about this arrangement of tones. The 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6th note of the major scale. So when we're going to refer in this lecture to the pentatonic scale, we're going to be talking specifically about 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the major scale. You can hear in that combination of pitches it probably sounds somewhat familiar to you. Now you might hear this, when it sounds to you, you might hear, well, gee, that sounds like something I've heard in a lot of Oriental or Asian music or Eastern type of music. And sure enough, this is a scale that gets used a lot in that type of music. But also it gets used a lot in American folk themes. Also, this scale, as we'll find out shortly, is very closely related to both our traditional blues scale that we talked about earlier this semester and also the Kansas City blues scale that we talked about briefly. That's the pentatonic scale. Now, jazz musicians have a lot of different scales and resources and chords and harmonies at their disposal when they're improvising. We've already talked about modes, but the pentatonic scale is another one that they can use quite a bit. Pentatonic scale showed up in early jazz quite a bit and in the swing period, and then we got into the 60s with the improvisers like Wayne Shorter and Chick Corea, Freddie Hubbard, John Coltrane, McCoy Tyner. They started using the pentatonic scale also in a more modern type of a way. The great jazz pianist Art Tatum used the pentatonic scale a lot in his connecting runs when he was playing solo piano. You hear that a lot. That's the pentatonic scale. But we can also create some kind of melodic type of line, especially over modal tunes, with the pentatonic scale. So here it is, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Let's look at some applications of the pentatonic scale now. So, let's say we had a C major 7th chord. That's our chord that we like to refer to quite a bit when we're trying to figure out how a concept could work. We've got a C major 7th chord. And what would be the scales or the modes that we've studied this semester that would sound nice on a C major 7th chord? Well, so far we've talked about two. The two scales that work nicely over major 7th chords. One if it's acting like a 1 chord, and the other one if it's acting like a 4 chord. Remember what those two are. One of them was the Ionian mode. And the other one was the Lydian mode. Ionian mode. There it is from C. And the Lydian mode. Ionian mode. And the Lydian mode. Okay, so let's look at these two modes and see if we can find some pentatonic scales hiding within these two modes. Now remember, we're looking for 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of a major scale. So you could look in here and say, well, I'm trying to find 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the C major scale, or 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the E major scale, or 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the A flat major scale. So can you find some of these pentatonic scales hiding here in these two modes, Ionian and Lydian? Well, let's start with 1. If we start from C here, do you see that the C pentatonic scale, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the major scale, is hiding in here in the C Ionian mode? Well, sure, it's really not hiding. It's pretty much right there. We have C, D, E, G, and A. There it is, right there. Pretty much encompassed within that C Ionian mode. Let's go ahead and put that up here. So we can see that we have the C, D, E, G, and A. So what we're really saying here is that if I have a C major 7th chord, I could use some melodies, I can make up some melodies from the C major pentatonic scale. In fact, let's do the one from the example here. Here we are in example 3. So that's a nice little patternistic kind of a sound that you can get. It's got all the good notes in it. There's no avoid tones in there. Remember how we talked about Ionian and there was a couple of avoid tones in there. You want to stay away from the 4th scale degree and from the 7th scale degree. Well, actually not so much from the 7th, but you want to stay away from the 4th scale degree when you're using the Ionian mode. And the pentatonic scale here keeps you away from that avoid tone. So really what we can say here is that if I have a C major 7th chord, it's safe and sounds good to use the C pentatonic scale. Now let's see if there's any other ones. Are there any other pentatonic scales hiding in here in the C Ionian mode? Well, let's go to D. Well, the pentatonic scale built from D, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the D major scale would be D, E, and F sharp, A, and B. So that's really not hiding in there. How about from E? Is the E major pentatonic scale hiding in here in the C Ionian mode? Well, for E pentatonic, we'd have E, F sharp, G sharp. Well, already I can tell going that far that the E pentatonic scale probably isn't going to sound too good on a C major 7th chord. There's some foreign tones in there. Well, what about the F pentatonic scale? From the F pentatonic scale, F, G, A, C, and D. Are those notes hiding in here? F, G, A, C, and D. Sure enough, there they are. Yeah, maybe it's possible that we could use the F pentatonic scale on a C major 7th chord. So let's put those pitches in here. F, G, A, C, and D. The F major pentatonic scale is a possibility on a C major 7th chord. Let's hear what that sounds like. Here's a C major 7th chord. And here's the F pentatonic scale. It has kind of an unusual sound to it. I don't know if you can hear that. The sound really, the problem is happening right there on that 4th scale degree. Remember, with Ionian mode, we have an avoid tone. Not that you can't ever play it, it's just a tone that you want to be careful about emphasizing. So you can see that that F pentatonic scale not only emphasizes that F, it's the tonic of that pentatonic scale. So probably the F pentatonic scale, although it's hiding in here in the C Ionian mode, isn't really a pentatonic scale we'd want to use. It has kind of a foreign sound to it. So let's go ahead and get that out of there. Probably the F pentatonic scale is one that we wouldn't want to use. Let's keep going, though. Are there any other pentatonic scales hiding in here in the C Ionian mode? Let's go to G. Well, the G pentatonic scale would be G, A, B, D, and E. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the G major scale. Let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like over the C major 7th chord. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, all I'm doing is just playing the G, A, B, D, and E. That sounds pretty good. Listen to the little pattern we've got in example 5 here. Just digitally working my way up and down that scale in 4-note groups. Yeah, that's a nice sound. All right, so then really it sounds like a second pentatonic scale we could use on major 7th chords is built on the 5th. G, A, B, D, and E sound good. The G pentatonic scale sounds good on a C major 7th chord. So we have the one built on C, or the tonic, and we have one built on G, or the 5th. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at A. Is the A major pentatonic scale hiding in here in the Ionian mode? Well, here we have A, B, and the third note of the A major pentatonic would be a C sharp. And moving up farther here, we'd have an F sharp. So no, the A major pentatonic scale is not hiding here within the C Ionian mode, and the A major pentatonic scale probably would not sound good on a C major 7th chord. Let's continue one more. We've got a B. Is a B major pentatonic scale hiding within the C Ionian mode. B, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the B major scale. Well, no, we can tell quite quickly that the B major pentatonic scale with a C sharp and a D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp are not hiding in here within the C Ionian mode. So really, the two modes, or the two pentatonic scales we've got that would sound good on the C major 7th chord are the tonic, the one built on 1, which is C, and the one built on 5, which is G. But remember, we have two scales that sound good on major 7ths. The other one was the Lydian mode. So we've got maybe an extra pitch that we can kind of look for here. Now is the D major pentatonic scale hiding in here in the C Lydian mode. Remember the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the D major scale, D, E, F sharp, A, and B. Are those notes hiding in here? Yeah, sure they are. We have D, E, F sharp, A, and B all hiding in there in the D Lydian, in the C Lydian mode. I'm going to go ahead and say this too for, we have G and C on that Ionian, but we also have the D Lydian mode, the C Lydian mode, the D major pentatonic scale is hiding within there. Let's see what that sounds like. Here's the C major scale, or C major 7th chord, and here's our D pentatonic scale. First it sounds a little funny, but when you mess around with it for a little while, it actually sounds pretty good. It sounds kind of modern. In fact, it emphasizes that Lydian note, that raised 4. Let's listen to example number 6 there, which shows that you can use a D Lydian mode on a C major 7th chord. Doing here, as you can see, I'm not trying to make up pretty melodies, really. It's more digital, kind of sequential type of patterns. 4-note groups or 3-note groups. Or in a downward direction. And 3-note groups or in 4-note groups. This is where you usually hear, the more modern players that came about in the 60s, like Chick Corea and McCoy Tyner and people like Woody Shaw, a great trumpet player, Freddie Hubbard, so on and so forth, Herbie Hancock, not trying to make up beautiful melodies with the pentatonic scale, especially in up-tempo tunes, but using them more as digital type of patterns. So let's see if there's, just in case, if there's any other pentatonic scales hiding in here in the C Lydian mode. Well, we already decided that E wouldn't be, and there's G sharp. It does not exist, so that wouldn't work. How about F sharp, the F sharp major pentatonic scale? Well, that would have F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp in it, and you can see that we don't have either G sharp or A sharp here. And we did pick up one new accidental, but not enough to include A major pentatonic scale, because there's no C sharp, or the B major pentatonic scale, still no C sharp, D sharp, or G sharp. So really there's our 3 pentatonic scales that are going to sound good on a major 7th chord. We also picked up the D major pentatonic scale. Let's go ahead and write that one down here. We've got D, E, F sharp, A, and B. So the D major pentatonic scale, the one built on 2, is going to sound good on a major 7th chord. Well, that's a lot of stuff to look at, so let's go ahead and simplify things here. So what we're really saying here is that on a major 7th chord, we've got 3 strong candidates for the use of a pentatonic scale to make up some melodic patterns. We've got the one built on C, or 1, C, D, E, G, and A. We've got the one built on 2, D, E, F sharp, A, and B. And we've got the one built on 5, G, A, B, D, and E. The one built on 1, the one built on 2, and the one built on 5. Now you can stay just strictly to one pentatonic scale. That can get a good sound. Here's the one built on 1. And the one built on 2. It's a nice sound, nice more modern sound. And the one built on 5. It's nice to mess around with that. And once again, I'm just kind of crawling up and down that scale, usually in digital patterns, not trying to be melodic. I'm thinking rhythm and I'm thinking shape, but I'm not really trying to create new beautiful melodies with it, just letting the scale work itself up and down its own scale and its own sequential type of patterns. So really what we were talking about here is if I see a major 7th chord, I can use the pentatonic scales built on 1, 2, and 5. So if I've got, for example, an E flat major 7th chord, I'm going to use the 3 pentatonic scales, the one built on 1, 2, and 5. Now I actually like to think 2, 5, 1. The reason I like to think 2, 5, 1 is because I've already memorized those important numbers 2, 5, 1 when I was studying 2, 5, 1s, that important harmonic progression that shows up 65 to 95% in all standard tunes. So I just like to think if I've got a major 7th chord, I can use the pentatonic scales built on 2, 5, and 1. So that means I can use the major pentatonic scales built on F, which is 2, B flat, which is 5, and E flat, which is 1. Go ahead and erase this down here to give myself a little more room. So that means, and it's, remember, you're thinking major pentatonic, so you have to think the parent major scale of each of these. So that means on E flat major 7, I can use the F major pentatonic scale, F, G, A, C, and D. The B flat major pentatonic scale, B flat, C, D, F, and G. And the E flat major pentatonic scale, E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. Here's those sounds. E flat major 7, the F major pentatonic scale, the B flat major pentatonic scale, B flat, C, D, F, and G. One more time. And the E flat major pentatonic scale. Okay, good. It's a nice sound. Okay. Now let's look at a different type of chord. Let's look at a minor 7th chord, and let's do the same type of thing. Minor 7th chord. So the first thing, trying to determine what major pentatonic scale can I use on a minor 7th chord. Now some people like to take the route of learning a new pentatonic scale, which they call the minor pentatonic scale. I'll talk about that in a little while, but first I'd like to just stick to that major pentatonic scale. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of a major scale. And we're going to try to find out which major pentatonic scales are hiding within a scale that's appropriate for a minor 7th chord. So let's go to that minor 7th chord, C minor 7. C minor 7. Okay, now what's the most appropriate mode for a C minor 7? Well, so far we've talked about 3 different scales we could use on minor 7th. Those are the 2nd mode of major, which is called Dorian, 6th mode of major, which is called Aeolian, and the 3rd mode of major, which is called Phrygian. Now, which of those 3 scales is the most appropriate for a minor 7th chord? Well, it depends on how it's functioning in the key and all that kind of stuff, but we really determined that when you are in doubt, and if you're just looking at one minor 7th chord for a long period of time, that the Dorian mode is sort of the default sound, the default minor scale sound for a minor 7th chord. So let's go ahead and put a C Dorian mode up here. We've got C, D, E flat, F, G, A, and B flat. There's your C Dorian mode. And that's a great sound to make melodies up with. No avoid tones or anything. You know, it's great to make melodies. However, is there a way we can get that pentatonic sound, where we can get some of those digital patterns working, some of those patternistic kind of things? We don't have to worry about being melodic. Just by being patternistic, it kind of makes up good melodies for us. So, do we have any major pentatonic scales hiding here within this C Dorian mode? C Dorian. All right. So let's go ahead and start once again with 1. C is the C major pentatonic scale hiding in here in this C Dorian mode. Well, hopefully pretty quickly you can see that it's not. The main thing we've got is this problem happening here at the 3rd scale degree. There would be an E natural if it were a C major pentatonic scale, so that's not in there. How about the D major pentatonic scale? Well, pretty quickly we can see that that's not going to exist either. The D major pentatonic scale would have an F sharp, and it would have an E natural, so no. No D major pentatonic. So D major pentatonic is not going to sound so great on a C minor 7th chord. How about E flat? First, the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the E flat major scale would be E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. So that's a good one. The E flat major pentatonic scale is going to be hiding in there within the C Dorian mode. So that's one good possibility. E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. The E flat major pentatonic scale, or the one built on the lowered 3rd, is a good strong possibility, good candidate for using a pentatonic scale on a minor 7th chord. Hear what that sounds like. Yeah, it's a nice sound. In fact, let's go ahead and see what example 8 sounds like. We've got a C minor 7th chord, and we've got a little melodic line that sounds like this. Ooh, that's nice. One more time. And you can just run it up and down. And down. Now, it's just easier to do on some instruments rather than others. I mean, piano, it feels pretty good. It works with the fingers pretty well. Some instruments like trumpet, saxophone feels pretty good. Bass probably feels pretty good, but you have to slow it down. Some instruments, though, I have heard trombonists using the pentatonic scale quite a bit, but of course you have to do it at a slower tempo. Vocalists, it's not a tough scale to be able to hear, but of course you have to develop some skill and chops to get the sound of that scale and your technique together to get that. Guitarists, what I've found about guitarists is it's used so much in rock guitar. This pentatonic scale is used so much. It's one of the easiest scales for guitarists, jazz, people that are coming from a rock tradition into playing jazz. It's one of the first scales they learn and can adapt quite easily into a jazz setting. So E flat. Now what about F? Is the F major pentatonic scale hiding in here in the C Dorian mode? F, G, A, C, and D. Yeah, there it is. We do have an F pentatonic scale hiding in here in the C Dorian mode. Let's go ahead and put that up there. So we've got F now also. F, or 4. Now this one, some people really like the sound, and I haven't included it here. I don't think it's got a strong enough sound for the minor. The reason why is because the two most important tones of a minor 7th to me are the lowered 3rd and lowered 7th. That's what gives you your quality of it sounding minor, and that's what gives you its sound of it being kind of an active or dominant type of a sound. So the 3rd and the 7th are really important structural tones in the minor 7th chord, and you can see that the F pentatonic scale has neither of those. Yet, it is a sound that you can get used to, so if you want to experiment with the pentatonic scale built on 4, you go ahead and do that. I just haven't included it here. Here's a minor 7th chord, C minor 7, and here's our F pentatonic scale. Now, you can get used to it, especially in a modal type of setting. So I'd go ahead and experiment with it. It is a possibility. So the pentatonic scale built on the 4th scale degree of Dorian is a possibility there. Let's keep going. How about the G major pentatonic scale? Well, no, you can see that G, A, B natural, we'd have to have that in order to make that fit, so that's not going to be a possibility. How about the A major pentatonic scale? No, quickly you can see that's not going to work either, because with A major we're going to need some sharps like C sharp and F sharp, and those don't exist here in our C Dorian mode. And how about the last pitch, B flat? B flat, C, D, F, and G. Yeah, sure enough, the B flat major pentatonic scale fits nicely there within within our C Dorian mode. So let's go ahead and bracket that one off too. Let's see, I've got green here, so let's do that. The B flat pentatonic scale. Writing it down here to give myself some space. B flat, C, D, F, and G. There it is. The B flat or lowered seventh pentatonic scale works nicely on a minor seventh chord. Here's what that one sounds like. B flat pentatonic. So this one sounds pretty good too. It doesn't have the lowered third scale degree, which is an important tone. It doesn't have that E flat, but it's got that B flat, and it's got some other nice important tones too. Let's go ahead and listen to the excerpt given there one more time on that one. Let's go ahead and listen to excerpt number 10. That sounds something like this. One more time. 2, 3, 4. It's a nice sound. Sounds kind of like sort of a modal John Coltrane, McCoy Tyner type of melody. Okay. You can also see that the sus chord. The sus chord is these pitches here. I'll give myself some room here. C, F, G, and B flat. The C sus 7. That's a pretty frequently used sound, especially in modal type tunes. And this B flat pentatonic scale is a nice pentatonic option for sus chords, because you can see the pentatonic scale itself has a flat 7 and it has that 4, and it's got the root in the 9th and the 5th. And you can see those are important tones down here. We've got the root, we've got the 4, the 5, and the flat 7. So if you ever see a sus chord, go down a whole step and play a major pentatonic scale, and that's going to give you a good pentatonic scale for a sus chord. So altogether, when we add all this up here, let's try to simplify things on the board. What we're saying is that if I have a minor 7th chord, the 3 pentatonic scales that are going to sound pretty good are going to be the ones built on the lowered 3, which is E flat, one built on 4, which is kind of optional. Remember, it doesn't have the 3rd and the 7th, but still sounds pretty good. And the one built on lowered 7 from B flat. Okay. And you can mix these up too. You can play them isolated. We talked about this before. That's the flat 3. Here's the 4. And the flat 7. A lot of improvisers, though, like to use one for a while and then use another one, mix them up, even mix them up like in close proximity to each other. Maybe a few notes of the flat 3 and then a few notes of the 4 and a few notes of the lowered 7. Flat 3, 4, flat 7, 3, 4. So you might get a line that sounds something like this. Sort of mixing up the lowered 7 and the lowered 3 and the 4 all together. Remember, we're talking about just major pentatonic scales, but some people do talk about a minor pentatonic scale. Usually when people talk about a minor pentatonic scale, they're referring to this collection of pitches here. One, lowered 3, 4, 5, and lowered 7. This is what a lot of people call the minor pentatonic. Sounds like this. 1, lowered 3, 4, 5, and lowered 7. Well, I like to just think of a major pentatonic scale instead of going into all the minors. Because as you can see, this minor pentatonic scale is the same thing as our major pentatonic scale built on the lowered 3. C, E flat, F, G, and B flat is the same thing as E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. So instead of learning a whole new set of pentatonic scales, if you just think a major pentatonic and just start it from a different pitch, it's another maybe easier way. You don't have to learn as many different pentatonic scales to find pentatonic scales that work on a variety of different chords. So if someone refers to a minor pentatonic scale, they're probably talking about this one. Every once in a while there's another minor pentatonic scale that pops up that some people refer to. It looks something like this. 1, 2, lowered 3, 5, and 6. It's got a nice sound too. We can talk about that at a future time. A different minor pentatonic scale. But for the purposes of this exercise and this unit, we're just going to talk about major pentatonic scales and when and how to use them. Okay, so what we're talking about is major pentatonic scale used on major chords, the ones built on 2, 5, and 1. So for a C major 7, we'd use the D major pentatonic, the G major pentatonic, and the C major pentatonic. For minor 7th chords, we're going to use the ones built on the lowered 3 and lowered 7. The way I like to think about that is if I have a C minor 7th chord, let's get this pentatonic scale out of the way. If I have a minor 7th chord, like C, E flat, G, and B flat, I can use the pentatonic scales built on the 3rd and 7th of that chord. So I can, on a C minor 7th, I can use the E flat major pentatonic. Whoops, that's correct, isn't it? Yeah, we're good. And the lowered 7th, which is B flat. Okay. And remember, there's also that other option of using the one built on 4 as well. I also talked about the relationship of the pentatonic scale to the blues scale, both the traditional blues scale that we talked about and the Kansas City blues scale. Let's look at that real quick before we do some exercises. Here's our traditional blues scale that we talked about in the very first unit. 1, lowered 3, 4, raised 4, 5, and lowered 7. We talked about using that on a minor 7th chord, but also on a dominant 7th chord, especially a dominant 7th chord with a sharp 9. Right? Now, can you see any relationship between this C blues scale and, let's say, this E flat major pentatonic scale? Well, sure. They're almost all the same pitches. We have E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. And here we have E flat, F, G, B flat, and C with an extra tone, F sharp. So you can see that really the blues scale, you can think of it as originating somewhat from a pentatonic scale, at least when it came from Africa, made its way into American culture, mixed with European musical cultures, put together, add a blues note in there, and you sort of get this hybrid pentatonic scale, blues scale type of idea. So you can see how all these cultures come together and come up with solutions and musical problems that are pretty similar. So our blues scale is very similar to our pentatonic scale built on the lowered 3rd. The other blues scale we talked about was the Kansas City blues scale. Here's that one. Kansas City blues scale goes 1, 2, raised 2, 3, 5, and 6. So this one, does this have any relationship to any other pentatonic scale that we've seen today? Sure it does. You can see that if we just eliminate this D sharp, we're going to get our C major pentatonic scale. C, D, E, G, and A, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the major scale. So the Kansas City blues scale also has a very close relationship to the pentatonic scale. Once again, an evidence that European culture and African culture, American culture, Spanish, French music all coming together and making their sort of combination of musical genres all in New Orleans around the beginning of the 20th century, all coming together to form something that sounds pentatonic and blues and all that. But besides all that, the main thing we need to just focus on for this unit is that for major 7ths, the pentatonic scales are the ones built on 2, 5, and 1. And for minor seventh chords, the pentatonic scale is built on 3 and 7. So let's try a few exercises here. The first one says, write players sing 3 pentatonic scales that can be used on major seventh chords below. So let's see, the first one they have is a F major seventh. So what 3 major pentatonic scales will sound good on an F major seventh? Well, remember, it's the ones built on 2, 5, and 1. So 2, 5, and 1 of an F major seventh would be G as the 2, C is the 5, and of course F is the 1. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the G major scale would be G, A, B, D, and E. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the C major scale would be C, D, E, G, and A. And 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the F major scale would be F, G, A, C, and D. All of those pentatonic scales would sound great on an F major seventh chord. F, G, and C. Okay. All right, that's that one. How about E flat major? No, we did that one already. How about A major? Let's go to A major. What 3 major pentatonic scales would sound great on an A major seventh chord? A major 7. Remember, the code is 2, 5, and 1 are going to sound really good on an A major seventh chord. So 2 of A major would be a B. 5 is going to be an E. And 1, of course, is going to be an A. So do you know the notes of a B major pentatonic scale? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the B major scale. B, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp. Five. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the E major scale. F sharp, G sharp, B, and C sharp. And 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the A major scale. A, B, C sharp, E, and F sharp. And there are our 3 pentatonic scales that sound great on an A major seventh. 2, 5, which is E, and 1, which is A. Okay, good. All right, let's go to some minor seventh chords now. The 2 main ones we talked about were the ones built on the 3rd and the 5th of a minor seventh chord. So let's look at the first exercise there. D minor, okay, D minor 7. Remember, the ones built on lowered 3 and lowered 7, or the other way to think of it is the 3rd and the 7th of this chord. Well, the 3rd and the 7th of a D minor 7th chord are F is the 3rd, and the 7th is C. So those 2 pentatonic scales are going to sound nice on a D minor 7th chord. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the F major scale. F, G, A, C, and D. And 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 of the C major scale. Well, we've done that one quite a bit today. C, D, E, G, and A. Okay. So there's our 2 pentatonic scales that sound nice on a D minor 7th. In fact, there's the beginning of that classic Duke Ellington tune. Okay. So pentatonic built on F, and how about built on C? All right, so that's it. Major sevenths, 2, 5, and 1. And on minor sevenths, the one built on the 3 and the 7, or the lowered 3 and lowered 7, any way you want to look at it. And that's the pentatonic scales that will work on those chords. In a future unit, we'll talk about what kinds of pentatonic scales work on dominant chords and half diminished chords. We'll find later on that they really don't sound too great on fully diminished chords, but there's also a variety of other kind of extended chords, altered chords, that we can get a nice pentatonic sound out of. So we'll go ahead and finish with this unit and go on to another topic.